ticket punched all the way through. They had everything they could ever dream of. They owned a cooperative apartment building in Brooklyn. They had everything you could think of. They had the cars, the vacations, the trips, everything under the sun. Unfortunately, Martha developed cancer and had to leave her job. And John happened to be a person, when the city of New York had budget problems, was suddenly a position that wasn't necessarily needed to be filled anymore. Quickly, they both lost their jobs. They lost the cooperative apartment. They lost their cars. They lost everything that they had. I happened to be working in Crown Heights one day, and I was walking down the street. Many of you who know Brooklyn would know the location, Utica and Eastern Parkway. I was walking down the street, and I think it's easy to tell everybody that I don't necessarily fit into the community there. I don't look like everybody else. Suddenly, somebody's calling my name. I know a lot of people, but the person who's calling my name is calling it very loudly. I'm trying to figure out why is somebody screaming across the street at me. And I went into the middle of Utica Avenue, and I saw my friend John Washington for the first time in about 2 years. And my friend John Washington was wearing the same clothes he'd been wearing for months. They were tattered and torn and worn. John Washington had fallen all the way from that 2-income family in the cooperative apartment all the way to living on the streets. My point is, it can happen to any one of us in this room. And thanks to the efforts of Assemblyman Green, we have this bill that will hopefully start generating resources on the local level. So those who do fall that far, we can rescue them, we can get them back into housing. It may be rental housing, as President Carlisle was saying, but one day we'll get it back into ownership again. Because those are the people that we need to be concerned about. And I thank Assemblyman Green for supporting that legislation. I thank him for everything he's done for the last 17 years in the Assembly and for 20 or 30 or 40 more years in the Assembly. And what we can do together is what we're about. So I do appreciate being here. We're part of that process. We hope to meet as many people as we can tonight and talk about what we're doing. But I want to hand over and back to the mayor and the Assemblyman, because I'm really looking forward to Reverend Suarez's comments about what they're doing, because he's really been he's a legend in his own time in the sense of being able to change policies and change programs and be a real pace setter for what we need to be doing together. Thank you very much.
Before I turn the mic over to Reverend Soares, I would just like to ask all the other ministers here in the city of Plainfield to just rise to be acknowledged. Thank you. The reason why I ask, because of the fact that I'm hoping that the group that I just asked to stand can develop a partnership with Reverend Soares, because about a month ago we had the joint hearing. Let me tell you something. I was so proud of not only him being a minister, but being a man of color who really understands how the process works. And this is why it's going to be so important. And we had bipartisan support at that meeting to get behind Reverend Soares, because of the fact that we felt that he has an opportunity and a vision that can help all of us. All of us cannot lead, but all of us can be part of a team. This is what I'm trying to develop tonight, because it's obvious, a lot of people don't know, but there's 3 of us in the Assembly that's part of leadership, decide where the money goes, what bills get posted, and we have the Speaker, Bonnie Wasserkover, and myself. So it's obvious we got the votes. So just like Mr. Brown said earlier, when I got the bill out of committee, right away, I wanted that bill to be posted. I wanted to make sure that bill passed. And this is what we've been able to do in Trenton. This is why the program that Reverend Soares is laying out is real. It's going to happen. And the reason reason why it's going to happen is because of the fact that we realize how important it is to be prepared for the families that right now might not be in this room, but 6 months they might be in this room. And it might be one of us. So we have a structure in place. In the first of the year, when the money starts to come from Washington, both candidates made it very clear they're going to make it happen. When they make it happen, we have to be ready to make it happen. I was very honored yesterday when I was in Trenton because of the fact that I didn't attend a meeting that the governor called with leadership. And I happened not to be in the room, and the governor was laying out some plans. And they said, well, I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to the minority community governor, if you don't understand, you will understand. It's not going to happen unless you get the blessing of Assemblyman Green. So that made me feel that they understand, that I understand that it's time for the urban communities to have people like Reverend Soares who can stand up and represent us and put things in a place where we all can benefit from. And the nice thing about it, we have the magnet industry because of the fact that they had developed a lot of these problems themselves. So the federal government want to bail them out. And what about bailing out the homeowner who might have ran into hard times? So I don't want to be misleading to anyone this evening, but this is our first stop. We plan on going around the whole state and have these type of meetings with the community so that when we hear what you have to say, we hear what you feel, we hear your pain, then it's obvious. When we go back, we sit down with the governor, we sit down with leadership, then we can make things happen. So this time now, I'd like to present Reverend Buster Soares, my friend, child of God, person who we all should try to support and work with. But this is what we have to do. No different than the new president. He's one person, but we have to get behind him. And this is what we have to do with all of us. When we put them in a leadership position, and they shouldn't forget where they come from. And I'm pretty sure Buster won't forget because I haven't forgotten. This time now, Buster Soares. Thank you.
I feel like I ought to say Uncle Jerry. It was about 1 year ago that I received a call from Reverend Ball in Plainfield. And one of her members was about to be evicted from her house, which the bank had already taken back. I've been talking with Mayor Briggs and with Assemblyman Green up to that point about this looming foreclosure crisis. But Reverend Ball's member really captured my attention because prior to that call, we were doing what many of you were doing, and that is trying to get people to call early, contact their lender, and try to work things out. But in this case, the bank had already taken the house. The family was in the house. The woman had missed that many payments. She had been living there for a number of years, and the bank just didn't want to hear her. And it was through this situation that it became quite clear to me that these banks were playing good cop, bad cop. The good cop would be on TV saying, just call us, and saying to the politicians, just have people call us. And then their lawyers and their services on the ground were doing everything they could to take these houses. What was tragic about Reverend Ball's member was that not only had she really not missed that many payments, but her missing the payments were due to illness and job loss, which is contrary to the public image, because we have all of these people saying, why should we bail out deadbeats, and why should the government help people living above their means? Well, most of our people are not living above their means. What has happened is, we're spending billions of dollars overseas and losing jobs right here, and people are losing their means. So it's not living above your means, it's not having any means at all. And by this time last year, what was clear was that the house which the bank owned was listed by a realtor, and the realtor couldn't sell it because on that same street, there were about 4 other houses that were bank owned. And so the street was not a street where people were buying houses. But in spite of the fact that the realtor could not sell the house, the bank was going to evict the woman, so now we would have an empty house and a homeless woman. To add insult to injury, Reverend Ball's member had about $60,000 in equity in that house, which meant that not only would she lose her house, had she lost her house, but she had lost the equity in her house. It's the equity in my house that I'm using to send my kids to college. And the closer we got to Thanksgiving, the more Reverend Ball's member just pressed on my mind and my spirit. And I said to my staff, if I have to buy that house, that woman's not going to be evicted. And what I'm going to describe to you tonight is a direct result of us at First Baptist responding to a call from my friend who I respect and love, Reverend Ball in Plainfield. We talked to the state, and at that time, the state of New Jersey, as you heard described, was connected to the Hope Now Alliance, and the $180 million appropriated by Congress was divided up, and New Jersey's portion came to the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency. They made the strategic decision to fund HUD-certified counselors around the state, and there are about 13, I think, HUD-certified counseling agencies around the state, and many of them were funded to do counseling. And at that time, what I said to the state was, the need for counseling is bigger than the resources. That was a year ago. But in Reverend Ball's member's case, it was beyond counseling. If you've already lost your house, there's no loan to modify. There's no counseling that can apply. We then began talking to the state about the idea that we need money. We meaning our communities, our mayors, our community groups, we need money because if we could buy that house, we could let Reverend Ball's member stay in the house, we would help her get on her feet, and then she could get a house back. But there was no money available. The state's decision was to fund counseling, and the state will continue to expand its funding of counseling. In fact, the governor's announced that there's going to be mandatory mediation, and what that will do is increase the number of workouts that can happen and slow down the foreclosure process, but there will still be people who lose their houses. We began scraping together funds from our various nonprofit corporations, from the church, and we made an institutional decision. This woman is not going to be put out of her house. In addition to all of that, her daughter would have to change schools in the middle of the school year. We then, I wrote an editorial, back up. We were able to appeal to the sheriff and to the judge and express our interest in buying the house, and lo and behold, the judge gave a stay of eviction, and we were able to get her eviction postponed, and that was good news. And that's important because we're doing every day now. We just do that. If we find somebody who's in a house, the bank owns the house, we just get to them and say, we'll buy it. And the judge will stop the foreclosure. And we've got about 25 families right now who would have been homeless had we not intervened with an offer to buy the house. So I wrote an editorial for Dr. King's birthday last year for some newspaper, and in that editorial I argued that there are people who are just going to lose their houses. You can do the best job you can in counseling, but there's a certain percentage of people who are going to lose their houses. They're the hardest people to help, but they're the people who need help most. The people who need the help the most are the people hardest to help. George Bush came out with a loan program to help people restructure their finances, and the only people who qualified were people who were not late. Well, people who weren't late didn't need that kind of help. I then began, with my staff, contacting everybody I knew. I went to Wall Street, I went to Main Street, I went to banks, and finally ended up at the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York. There is, throughout this country, a Federal Home Loan Bank system, and that system lends money to banks at discounted rates. And I was on the board of the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York from 2003 to 2004, and I knew that they had about $55 billion in cash sitting in the bank. So I went to the Federal Home Loan